Welcome, 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 and thank you for joining Neuron's first webinar. My name is Kidsan Barnes. I'm the SVP for Cruise and Ferry, and I'm joined here with Benny Retnamony, who's our
Hello.
founder and CEO for Neuron.
Hello, Kidsan.
So I'll turn over to Benny to do a brief intro of himself before we begin.
Hi, everyone. I'm Benny, founder and CEO, Chief Executive here at Neuron. I come from satellite communications, network engineering, cloud networking background. Been in the industry for more than a decade. Did engineering, advanced engineering products. In 2019, had a conviction that the landscape was completely going to change. There's going to be multiple constellations. The way people consume the services are going to change. And I think ventured out, bootstrapped back then eSpace Networks. It's been an amazing journey. I think we have really propelled the transformation in the industry on how networks can be managed using quality of experience and how quality of experience should be at the heart of the decision making here. So looking forward to this.
Nice, nice, nice. Well, thank you for taking the hot seat. Very much appreciated. Always enjoy spending time and learning from Benny, of course. So I just want to remind the audience, if you do have questions, please go ahead and submit them. We have our team on standby to add the questions on my little iPhone here. So if you see me looking down, I'm looking at questions and I'm looking to guide the conversation. So Benny, let's start. Can you start by explaining? We talk a lot about quality of experience in our social media posts and on everything we do. So can you explain for the audience what QoE actually means in the context of connectivity?
Yeah, I think nobody buys connectivity for the sake of buying connectivity. I think they all buy connectivity, they all buy bandwidth to deliver an outcome, to deliver an experience. It could be to make sure that someone on a cruise ship can update their experience on Instagram. It could be for someone on an oil rig who's trying to have a FaceTime call back home with his family. So connectivity is always procured to deliver an outcome or an experience. And quality of experience is a way for, okay, how do you take that subjective metric on how well the experience is and help customers understand scale it from 0 to 100 so that they can synthesize and say, okay, it's 8 out of 10 good or 6 out of 10 good or 9 out of 10 good. And I think that's what quality of experience metric does.
Okay. So in the industry, we've all become accustomed to all the performance metrics. You have jitter, you have round trip delay, you have all these metrics that everyone is used to looking at individually. When you think about that concept, how would you say quality of experience or QoE scores sets apart an improvement to how we have been accustomed to tracking individual metrics?
I think packet loss, upstream, downstream packet loss, jitter, bandwidth, they are all good network performance metrics. And different applications go through different experiences, different performances based on different metrics. Like to give a simple example, someone trying to update an Instagram reel, for them, upstream bandwidth is all that matters. Downstream bandwidth doesn't really matter. For someone having a FaceTime call, it's upstream and downstream bandwidth of a certain levels with jitter that really matters to give that real-time experience. So while network performance metrics are great to understand network performance, I think QoE takes it a level up to say, okay, if someone is trying to upload a video, what would that experience look like? If someone is trying to have a Zoom call, what would that experience look like? If someone is trying to watch a Netflix movie, how would that experience look like? So that's what segregates quality of experience, which is a synthesized version of application performance. On the other side, packet loss, latency, this all does good work with measuring network performance.
Right. Understood. So we're talking a lot about network performance. So how do we take quality of experience scores and tie that, let's say, to onboard revenue teams? What benefit do they get from understanding the quality of experience score?
I think it all starts with understanding experience. As I started with saying, right, people don't buy bandwidth for the sake of buying bandwidth. They buy bandwidth because they're trying to deliver an outcome. For an onboard revenue team, it could be the outcome could be, okay, I want to maximize revenue. I want to make sure my guests have an amazing experience, sharing their experiences with the rest of the family or being connected with the family. Quality of experience should help them understand, okay, using quality of experience, they can do smart procurement, they can do smart operations. I mean, simple questions like, okay, am I buying enough? Should I buy more? If I buy more, will I be able to get better experience? If I buy more, can I maximize my revenue? And I think quality of experience helps answer those critical questions, which onboard revenue teams pretty much have to go through day in and day out.
I understand. So we're talking about their costs, what they're investing in. Quality of experience is actually driving the background decisions that they're making to drive the business forward, right?
Yes.
Understood. All right. So let's talk about quality of experience and how it would apply to, let's say, vessels or aircraft that, well, not aircraft specifically, but let's say vessels that don't have passengers and onboard revenue.
Yeah. So going back to people buy connectivity to deliver outcomes, instead of user quality of experience, it can be application quality of experience. So for a shipping company, making sure that, hey, their onboard CCTV system that is managed from the cloud is performing well. Mm-hmm. So it need not be just user quality of experience. On the other side, for an energy company, if they're having robotic processes that are being managed remotely, how well those processes are performing. So instead of user quality of experience for shipping, energy, and some other verticals like mining, it could be application quality of experience.
Yeah. So one thing that's common across all the industries we serve is there's always some type of crew involved. How does QoE really help the team's shoreside to ensure that the crew is actually receiving the optimal service they can receive?
Again, crew welfare is big. Crew welfare is at the heart of making sure your customers are being treated well. So quality of experience helps like shoreside teams or IT teams understand, okay, how well the crew experience is on board. Okay, if someone is trying to have an online course back home, can they do that well?
Right.
Is that going to be impacted? These are while low latency has completely revolutionized experiences on board, I think making sure you have a tab on how is it performing 24/7, 365 really makes a difference.
Yeah. Okay. Interesting points. Yep. All valid points. I think we want to move a little bit on to how Neuron is actually measuring quality of experience. So can you tell the audience how did we actually develop our overall quality of experience score? What went into developing some of Neuron's products? Let's touch on that.
Yeah, I think the real story there was before Neuron existed, there was a lot of anecdotal data that people would say, oh, the experience was good. And then I still remember asking customers back then, how do you rate it? Would you rate it 6 out of 10, 8 out of 10? And that kind of triggered the thought process for us, right? Like, okay, what if we create, and by this time, machine learning models were getting a lot more mature. So the approach that we took was, how do we collect enough training data from customer feedbacks where customers would have rated a service 6 or 7 or 8 or 9 or 10 out of 10, collect enough training data. To give you an idea, we probably have thousands of hours of videos where the model is trained based on video performance under different conditions, low upstream bandwidth, high upstream bandwidth, low latency, high jitter. And then once these models are trained, then we have a very bandwidth efficient probe, because to understand experience, people can write a script that will watch a YouTube video. That's very simple. The problem is when you watch a YouTube video and it's at 1080p, you're losing 4, 5, 8 megabits per second. So now how do you use a very lightweight probe and then using the machine learning model, then kind of extrapolate the experience? So with confidence, you could say, yes, a 720p video would have worked. Yes, someone trying to upload Instagram reel would have a good experience. So I think that's the approach we have taken, and it's really it has served as well. We are seeing a lot of feedback from the industry where people would take a flight or a cruise and come back and say, oh, I had a 9 on 10 experience, and our scores would be like 91.
Exactly, match.
And then there are times when customers would say, yes, everything was working, but I was trying to upload something from my iPhone, and that took forever.
Yeah.
And then you would see the upstream QoE being 40 out of 100.
Right.
So I think the approach we have taken was novel, and I think it has served as well, really.
Yep. So let's talk a bit about when our customers have the Neuron quality of experience score, they have access to a portal. Now they know, okay, I don't have to reach out to an IT officer. I don't have to reach out to anyone to say how that experience was. What can we do to help them to improve the quality of experience scores?
So it's a very good question, because I still remember sitting in a customer meeting where one of the customers said, Benny, I see a bunch of red, yellow, greens. What does this mean? And I think
Right.
this is what summarizes it, right? And as I said, once you understand quality of experience and once you understand factors impacting quality of experience, like, okay, yes, your overall experience is great, but your upstream performance is bad, which means someone trying to send a large email with a large file attached is going to have a terrible experience. Once you understand that, then you could do that, use that data insight to start from doing smart procurement. How do I right size my upstream, downstream capacity? And then thereon, you can use it for smart operations. Like people don't have to wait until someone sends an email saying, hey, I had a Teams call and the Teams call was all blurry. Now you can use the data to be proactive on top of things so that as your business continues, your IT ecosystem is not pulling it back, but propelling it. So using that data like QoE and factors impacting quality of experience, you can start from very smart procurement. So you buy really what you want. On the other side, you can make operations a lot more smarter from proactively tackling issues.
Yeah. So let's move a little bit forward to we have the Neuron Grid product, right? So how does Neuron Grid play into that equation in order to help customers improve their quality of experience?
Yeah, the way it's again very interesting. The way our products evolved was heavily customer influenced. Again, there's another story where customers said, "Yeah, you're gonna tell me either things are great or things are really bad, or things are okay, but what do I do with it, right?" And then, of course, one answer is you do smart procurement, you do proactive monitoring and smart operations. But then it led to a thought process of, okay, what if we can build a self-healing system? Like, okay, I know the upstream performance is impacting upstream quality of experience. Now, what do I do about it? There are things that the customer can do, like, for example, dynamically adjusting the quality of service configurations on the network systems, or dynamically adjusting the upstream capacity on the systems. So I think that's where Grid comes in, where we said, okay, it's not just about measuring quality of experience and understanding what impacts it, but also, okay, now how do I react to it dynamically? How do I build a self-healing system? And I think that mission kind of helped us get into, okay, Grid, how do you do automated decision making? And here we are, we have a large installation base around where there are systems that self-heal to upstream issues or downstream issues or surge in demands, and it's just pretty amazing to see that.
So would you say that for the audience out here that's very familiar with SD-WAN tools, would you say that Grid being a self-healing platform, is that the key differentiator between typical SD-WAN products out there?
Funny enough, one of the advisors who encouraged me to start Space Networks, now Neuron, was actually a founder of an SD-WAN company. And of course, after he exited the business, we're looking at the problem that we were trying to solve. The first thing he said is SD-WAN will not solve this problem, or it was not built to solve this problem. So the foundational difference between what SD-WAN was built for and what the problem that our customers are facing is SD-WAN was built for offices, data centers, where the ecosystem doesn't go through a lot of changes. Like, to give you an example, I'll pick an example from cruise industry. A cruise ship on a port day, a turnaround day, probably has 50 passengers and probably 1,000 crew members using the service. On a sea day, probably 800 passengers using the service and 200 crew members online. So the demand pattern significantly changes as the ship moves around. The available bandwidth changes. The system might have a rain event, weather event, and probably for an hour it has very degraded service.
Right.
So how do you react to it, to different demands, different bandwidth conditions? I think SD-WAN was never built for it. It was built for a different purpose. You can always try to fit a square peg into a round hole. And I think a lot of people try to do that. But I think a software-defined SATCOM system or a network orchestration system can probably manage it in a much more intelligent way. And I think that's a key differentiator between what we do with Neuron Grid based on the quality of experience. Like Grid, the fundamental building block of Grid is quality of experience.
Right.
How do you understand quality of experience of each flow, and how do you react to it? And I think that differentiates us. So we don't have static policies. We don't have static SLA configurations. We don't have, oh, if packet loss is greater than this, do this, or if this link goes down, do this. The system really adjusts to innumerable conditions that a human mind cannot really understand and comprehend.
Understood. No. So let's talk a little bit off the beaten path. We talk a lot about cruise and grid, and there's a lot of conversation online right now about multi-provider for aviation industry. So let's tap into that conversation. And what are your thoughts there? And will we see grid operating in the aviation industry?
Yeah, I mean, good question again. A couple of years back, having two terminals on a plane was a big no-no. Oh, no way it's going to happen. It's very expensive. We will always be a single terminal. There are many things happening, right? I mean, ESAs are lightweight. Cost of terminals are dropping. What it is kind of unlocking is a lot of airlines are now already planning to have multiple terminals on board these planes. And what that enables is, okay, now can I have those terminals locked to different providers? And I think, interestingly, those conversations are happening right now. I think the conversations are ranging from, okay, how does it change my procurement model? How does it change my SLAs? How does it change my onboard portals and IFE systems? Neuron Grid unlocks some very interesting use cases there, and those conversations, as it happens, are really exciting. Now, I think the industry, has a lot to look forward to now with multiple, constellations. I think Neuron Grid unlocks new possibilities.
Yeah. And I think while we're double tapping on all the verticals, from a commercial shipping and energy space, what is the best value you think that Neuron Grid, for instance, would unlock for those verticals?
Oh, a ton, I would say, but I'll give a quick sneak peek into how Neuron Grid is helping customers and Neuron Grid and NCC in general. Leo, an amazing thing that happened for us is probably a disruption that has never occurred in the many decades in the past. Now customers have a very interesting thing to work on, right? You have a pool of consumption. I don't know, I have a 20 terabyte service or a 100 terabyte service or a 50 terabyte service, but I have a fleet of 100 ships that are in different parts of the globe. How do I manage it? How do I manage to that consumption? So you're managing within your costs, how much cost can you accommodate and delivering or maximizing experience. And Neuron Grid can do it at scale in full automation. I mean, literally, I've been in customer meetings where it'd be like, okay, how do you manage this? And the answer would be, oh, we would put a 5 megabits per second shaper or a 10 megabits per second shaper. And funny enough, the conditions on the ships constantly changes. The crew might want to get online at the end of the day. The demand might be more. So what Neuron Grid does is like literally manage a fleet to a consumption pool while maximizing experience. And I think we are the only ones who do that in the industry today. And I think what that unlocks is even more use cases, which we are all like now we're having those early conversations with customers.
Yeah. I think a very interesting concept behind it all is just understanding that grid applies to any size vessel. It could be, it doesn't matter how much bandwidth you're buying. It doesn't matter how many providers you have on board. So with that being said, let's talk a little bit more about the AI and machine learning component off grid. If you scroll through LinkedIn nowadays, everybody is hesitant to say that there really is some type of AI or machine learning in products. Everybody's a bit skeptical as to companies that use AI in their terminology or in their definitions. So can you elaborate a bit as to why Neuron actually says, yes, we do have some level of AI and machine learning in our products?
Yeah, I mean, I agree with that sentiment that a lot of people AI wash things now. But if you look back through our LinkedIn feed, we were talking about AI, ML even before generative AI was a thing. In 2020, if you look at our customer decks, we had it there because we knew that this is going to change the landscape, automated decision making, compared to export rules or policies can radically change how things our fleets are being managed. So again, going back to our product, as I said, the entire engine that decides what the network should look like, how the quality of experience configuration should look like, it's all automated. Like there is no human. I mean, if you look at the screen, you would see the system changing the configurations, routing configurations, QoS configurations on the fly, without any human intervention. As I said, you can have the system would have a completely different setup when there are 100 passengers or 600 crew members on board, or in a shipping example, if a couple of crew members are having a FaceTime call and there is a corporate application surging, it'll have a completely different configuration. So at the heart of that decision making is we use a lot of learning. There's a lot of optimization algorithms. Of course, it's not just AI ML. There is a lot of optimization algorithms that work in tandem. But in a nutshell, we didn't AI wash it. Well, of course, we have a lot of upcoming products that is going to use generative AI that is going to propel our products to a whole new level soon, which we're super excited about that. And kudos to the engineering team that makes it all happen. But overall, we didn't AI wash our product because back in 2021, we were like, this is how we do things. And of course, it was a very interesting trend that came along. LLMs became mature, generative AI became a thing, and now everybody's talking about AI. But I think we started doing this even before AI was really this thing that everybody now talks about.
Nice. Let's talk about the team for a little bit. So you said kudos, of course, to our engineering team. So can you explain the team structure that we have? As in, is there a data science team? Like, who is leading all of our development for these products?
I think one of the biggest strengths that Neuron had that kind of put us aside was initially from the founding team, we had a very interesting mix of skill sets. We had a network software developer, data path developer who would write the entire packet processing code base. We had a data scientist, of course, who was part of the early team. We had an NMS architect, was part of the founding team. We had a hardcore network architect, was part of the founding team. I think bringing those diverse skill sets together helped us build what it is today. Yeah. Because nobody was trying to solve the problem in the wrong place, or nobody was trying to solve a problem which shouldn't be there for the first place. And I think that diverse, like data science, network, data path engineering, NMS, data engineers, I think we have a good mix of all of that. Yeah. And we kind of that's what makes the magic happen behind the scenes. Nice. Right? As I said, every product that we launch, we don't try to copy what's there in the industry. We try to look at what would radically change how the customer is doing things, delivering that value. And I think our engineering teams have made it possible, but also it is possible because we bring this diverse skill sets together. Sure. That a lot of companies probably didn't have or didn't think that way.
Correct. And I think in addition to that, the technical powerhouse that we have, I think from a business side, understanding the industries that we are in, as we've known the last 2 years, has been very critical, right? Expanding into commercial shipping, expanding into energy, expanding into aviation. All of these verticals have just continued to grow. So let's talk about the business side of things. What are the benefits of using Neuron that you've seen with customers in, let's say, the aviation space specifically?
I mean, as a simple, every customer is trying to optimize for revenue performance within a certain cost levels. And I think it all starts there, right? Like, how do I maximize my revenue, maximize my performance with minimal cost? And I think Neuron Grid is the answer to that. Like, how do you make sure you deliver that value that you really want based on the passenger demographics that you have? Because a passenger in flying from Hong Kong to Sydney has a completely different expectation than someone flying from New York to London on leisure, for example. How do you deliver that experience? And Neuron Grid helps you deliver that experience. It maximizes your revenue performance at the minimal cost. And I think Neuron Grid is the answer for that. Again, we have seen customers like using data science techniques, we have seen customers operating at a point of diminishing returns, where we basically said, you can scale back your spend and you'll be fine. And they've been amazed at, like, how can you say that? Yeah, because you're operating at a point of diminishing returns. And I think Neuron Grid is a system that naturally delivers that in an automated way when you specifically operate thousands of aircrafts out there.
Right. No, definitely good point. So looking ahead, what is Neuron's vision for the future of quality of experience?
I think quality of experience for us ties into everything else we do, right? It's a culture we built in Neuron. Our support team looks at quality of experience. Every time someone says, hey, it looks like something is hard, we ask, okay, what is the quality of experience? I think that foundationally first changed how we think and how we operate. But looking ahead, we made quality of experience the heart of our NCC product, which helps customers operate a fleet of things, manage consumption pools across a fleet, or bandwidth pools across a fleet. We are making quality of experience the heart of our network APIs solution. And looking ahead, as I said earlier, we are working on very interesting offerings using generative AI, and I'm just amazed at what it can do for the industry. I think quality of experience is going to be at the heart of that as well, like understanding, okay, how do I, simple things like, can a system answer questions like, okay, how do I maximize my quality of experience for the next 7 days? Do I expect issues? Predicting. I think so because we got that piece right now, I think we're embedding that into all of our decision making around the entire platform. And I think we will continue to do that because at the end of the day, that's what matters, is that if people don't buy bandwidth because they want to buy bandwidth, they just buy bandwidth to deliver.
Right. And I think for all the network engineers out there, it's even more important to understand this is equipping them with the information that they need so that they're not wasting countless hours trying to troubleshoot and trying to tie policies together and trying to do so many things to improve customer experience. Now you have your metric that gives you quality of experience, and you have the back-end tool to help guide towards that, right?
Yeah, I think it radically changes how you work, how you think about your day-to-day work for a network engineer, right? I mean, no kidding. I've had days where someone would say, oh, I'm going to buy more bandwidth. And I remember, like, okay, why? And the answer would be, oh, the bandwidth is flatlining. And I'll be like, yeah, but the experience is good. You're flatlining, but the experience is good. Why would you buy more bandwidth? So that was a radical change. Flatlining doesn't mean you should buy more bandwidth.
Right.
There are times where you wouldn't flatline and we will be like, no, you need to buy more bandwidth. Because probably upstream, there was a very particular moment in the day that upstream was constraining downstream,
right,
and the quality of experience was degraded. So things like that, I think it radically changes how network engineers look at the system. And there are times when they would get a complaint. As I said, before Neuron existed, there is a lot of anecdotal data out there where someone would go on board and say, I had a Teams call and it was choppy. And literally coming from network engineering background, I remember spending nights and weekends searching through logs and like, why did that Teams call have issues?
Right.
And I think quality of Neuron, both Pulse, quality of experience, and Grid now gives those tools to, like, with confidence, they can say, no, your Teams call was bad because there was a lot of demand, and it is a quality of service challenge.
And I mean, you touched on not necessarily having to buy more bandwidth. Yes, clearly you can do better right sizing of your network with the access to the Neuron portal and the Neuron metrics. But what's important to say too is that let's talk about NCC a little bit. You mentioned it briefly, but I don't think the audience knows exactly what NCC is. So let's double tap on NCC, what we announced as that product, what's at the core of that product, and why with NCC, maybe you do buy more bandwidth, right?
Yeah, as I said, I mean, we are not saying you shouldn't buy more bandwidth, right? Okay. Actually, I would say you just do smart procurement, which means you buy more bandwidth, but probably in a different way. Like, there are different services available out there, right? There are providers selling CIR and MIR services with SLAs, and there are providers out there charging by consumption, which is basically, okay, you buy a 50 terabyte service. So when you have a CIRMAR service and a consumption service, how do you do smart procurement there? Or when you have a Wi-Fi connection near shore and you have a consumption service from probably a Leo provider and you have a CIRMAR service, how do you do that? And I think NCC kind of helps customers do smart procurement, or also when you buy in a smarter way, how do you use it in a smart way? And I think NC's network capacity controller helps customers do that. Like when you literally have a consumption pool across your fleet, and you have a CIR service on your geo systems, and you have a Wi-Fi nearshore Wi-Fi connection. Now, how do you use it in the most optimal way? Again, going back to delivering that maximum performance and revenue at the minimal cost possible. Yeah. And I think NCC can now, while Grid does it at a remote ship rig perspective, NCC literally takes it at a fleet level in a fully automated way. And I think that's pretty powerful.
Yeah. So for somebody that's never heard about NCC being network capacity controller, if you had to explain to this person in 3 sentences what NCC does, what is the summary as to what NCC is?
It helps customers manage their fleet connectivity across multiple providers, across different billing systems, giving them that overarching view around how do I maximize experience across my fleet. And that's what NCC delivers.
But what is the key what is the key function of NCC? What makes it different?
Again, we take that automated decision making now at a fleet level, right? Okay. So for example, probably again, this is another thing. We're the only ones who do that today. Where if you have about 3 ships in a region, ship 1 will be aware of what ship 2's demand is.
Okay.
So it can either free up using certain services or start using that services. And ship 3 will be aware of what ship 1 and ship 2 is doing. And I think that is, again, very powerful. You can unlock very interesting applications that, having those conversations with our early anchor customers and how the way they are thinking to use those services, it's just fascinating, because once you give them the toolkit, the capabilities, the application teams are now coming up with enormous use cases.
Ways, correct,
I'm like, oh, I can do this now, which wasn't possible. Like, simple example is, how can I transfer a terabyte of data within 2 hours,
right,
without incurring the cost always? That NCC unlocks because it brings network orchestration, multi-orbit orchestration to a fleet. There are customers now saying, okay, I can increase my IPTV channel lineup to have 100 channels for crew welfare, for sports betting and whatnot. But how do I do that without incurring a lot of cost?
Okay.
So NCC takes network orchestration across a fleet, across orbits, across providers, with awareness of applications. So while it's a platform, customers can use it to develop any use cases like the ones that I mentioned, or including like application triggered bandwidth.
Yeah. Okay. So essentially, a customer can have a pool of bandwidth potentially, and with Neuron Grid, NCC, all of that can be controlled with awareness as to what's happening on every vessel on the network, right?
Yep. And the pool can be bandwidth pools or consumption pools, like a 50 terabyte consumption pool across your fleet.
Yep.
So it can be any consumption pools or data rate pools.
And then you mentioned briefly network APIs. What is the benefit of network APIs, and does that exist with anybody else in the industry today?
I think network API. I mean, anyone who's aware of what is happening in the telecom can say that network APIs is certainly has a lot of scope and potential, where you are making the applications network aware. I mean, I think traditionally people have been making networks application aware, and I think network API kind of makes the applications network aware, where the applications can say, hey, I need this dedicated bandwidth for this moment. Like, for example, it could be a telemedicine use case where there's an emergency on board, the doctor has to see something in real time, high def, smart stethoscopes, whatnot. How do you deliver 100 megs symmetric with quality of experience to that for that moment?
Right.
And I think network APIs, when the application triggers the request, network APIs can orchestrate and facilitate that, again, based on quality of experience.
Right.
Across ships, across fleets. NCC is at the heart of it. Or network APIs can be things like, okay, now how do I provision more capacity? Because as I said, the other example, I have to offload a terabyte of data to the cloud. How do I do that? So network APIs lets you do that, like
Right.
literally scale up the service to multiple gigabits for a few hours.
Yeah.
You deliver the terabyte to the cloud, you scale back down. So I think while network APIs itself is a lot is happening in telecom around that, I think Neuron is very uniquely positioned because we are looking at across access types and we can orchestrate that across providers,
Yeah.
be it on the ground or on the space.
So we're basically unlocking any type of creativity that the customer may want from onboard revenue teams that may want to be able to have bandwidth on demand in the medical environment, or in a, I don't know, in a situation where they're streaming or having a guest singer on board, and they want to unlock certain bandwidth for certain users. All of these, initially, the world that we were used to 2, 3, 4, 5 years ago, it required a lot of changes to policies and changes to a lot of different things. And now we're saying, okay, we're unlocking it to where it's just a easier process, an automated process, right?
Yeah, I mean, our vision is the network infrastructure should actually unlock more capabilities
Right.
and not actually be the one that is holding back business use cases.
Yep.
We are encouraging customers to get out of, okay, don't think about capacity per ship.
Right.
You don't need to worry about capacity per ship, right?
Right.
Like you're delivering an outcome, make sure the capacity scales as you need it.
Yeah.
Within the cost constraints that you have. Now, what that means, okay, how do you buy differently? How do you talk to your providers?
Yeah.
Ask different services that can unlock these use cases. Because at the end of the day, I think the ecosystem wins when our customers and their customers get what they want.
Sure.
So, for example, it can be a person on board an oil rig. If they win, I think the entire value chain
Everybody wins. Agreed. So I'm going to ask one more question, and then we're going to go on to the questions coming in from the audience, because I see a few popping up here. The last question, again, around onboard revenue. So how does network APIs, NCC, what is this unlocking for the onboard revenue team specifically?
A lot of use cases again, but I'll probably pick one that I've seen predominantly come up, right? Okay, I buy a gig. I don't know in what upstream downstream ratio. I don't want to statically configure that because my upstream demand could be higher when a ship leaves the port, when a lot of iCloud backups are happening to the cloud. And there might be a time where there's a lot of downstream demand, probably at 11 p.m. local time, that a lot of crew members are trying to catch up on social media. How do I change that upstream downstream dynamically based on quality of experience again? So NCC helps customers do that. Going back to network APIs. It's like, okay, now how I have my casino system, and how do I bring the use cases of Wi-Fi into casino, into like, okay, can I unlock different betting, different online gaming
apps, right?
And I think network APIs unlocks more and more use cases around that. But again, as I said, give APIs to the developers and make the APIs developer friendly. You sky's the limit.
I agree.
And probably every conversation that I have with customers, someone always comes up with a better use case that I've never thought about
before,
and you will be like, wow, that's amazing. So I think NCC and network APIs for onboard revenue, it could be a cost optimization or cost exercise. On the other side, it could be new revenue through, I don't know, sponsorships or partnerships.
Partnerships and sponsorships completely unlocked. Agreed. All right, so let's move on to the questions from the audience. So thank you guys for submitting. I do see a few, so let's try to move quickly. All right. Is the optimization focused primarily on real-time experiences, or do prefetch and cache-in strategies play a role in the overall system performance?
No, it's a former, which is basically we measure quality of experience and you optimize the system based on the quality of experience to deliver, as I said, you maximize experience at the minimal cost possible. And you can set up the system with different constraints and use cases. The model scales. We are certainly venturing into, that's a very interesting question, because we're certainly venturing into some early conversations on how can this tie into a CDN system.
Okay.
And I think, as many of you know, terrestrial use cases rely on CDN networks to deliver content, a high definition content at scale. And I think our platform will eventually tie into other CDN systems that will unlock prefetching, caching, bringing like 4K content to people on a plane, on a rig, on a cruise ship. So I think we're something is cooking there.
Okay.
We'll probably make those announcements in the next few months.
Okay. Next question. Can you talk to how you get the owner or the end user, being the airline or cruise line, to get comfortable with using QoE metrics as part of the contract with their service provider, given that they may not be able to generate or mimic those measurements themselves, and somewhat to have to trust Neuron?
So I think that there is a learning curve here, right? The first time, going back 2020, our Go system goes live. When we showed them 80s and 60s on screen, people were like, I said, I don't understand this red, yellow, green. I don't care. And over time, we built confidence. It's like when they had a problem on board, our scores were reflecting it. And our scores were reflecting not just a bunch of red, yellow, greens, but we were also saying this is what was driving the scores low. And as the end customers started building confidence in that, like, okay, now our customers, they don't ask, oh, how is the experience? Can you please tell me? They go to our QoE scores and say, can you tell me the flight score? Can you tell me the score for the day or sea day, port day, whatnot? And I think as we build that confidence, it's certainly the end users are more like, that's a lot simpler. I have a CIO who would literally, the only way they will raise a case is literally take a screenshot of a QoE page for crew or corporate and send it and say, the experience is bad, please check. They don't say, oh, their link is having loss. And well, none of that matters for them. They're like, look at the experience is bad, can you please check on the system? As we build confidence, what we are seeing already is providers look at it and like, hey, I didn't have this insight. Can I get this insight as well? Because providers have a lot of data themselves.
Right.
And I think that's amazing, right? Because they control the whole system. But I think QoE gives them a different dimension into
perspective.
It's kind of new data into their data lake.
Yeah.
And providers are now more interested. So what has happened? As I said, it's new habits being formed.
Yeah.
While end customers build confidence in the system, providers are now like, okay, can I have the system myself?
Yeah.
Can I have this data myself? And that has driven already conversations where customers have said, can we use this as an SLA?
Right.
And I think I would say, not in the near future, we're going to have actually contracts probably being written based on QoE SLAs as we build confidence in the system.
Yep.
And I think it's just a matter of time.
It's a matter of time.
But we have already seen customers now talk to their providers about this, and providers actually asking Neuron, okay, can you get the same data set?
Was this where we insert a cardboard sign that says "Come into a provider near you"? Something like that. Yeah. Building confidence in a provider near you, something to that effect. So we're still working our way through that part of the market. Okay. Is Grid applicable to high performance CDN environments or only lower bandwidth, higher latency WAN environments?
Actually, it's a lot more applicable for high performance CDN environments because, as I said, when it's going back to the example I said, right? I have 2 terabyte data that I want to either get from the cloud or to the cloud. How do I do it within an hour? These are multi-gig services that you want to deliver on demand and scale back. So Grid certainly is applicable there.
Yep.
But we also see use cases of Grid and CDN in very low bandwidth environments, like a small commercial vessel having 20 crew members.
Yeah.
Again, how do you deliver? How do you ensure that CCTV system on board? Going back to the crisis that is happening in the Middle East, a ship passing through certain areas, you want the shoreside team have full-time, real-time CCTV access to the ship. It's a life and safety problem, and I think Grid unlocks those use cases as well.
Correct. All right, we have quite a few more questions, but we only have 2 more minutes because it's 9:44. So we're gonna go real quick, short answers here. It sounds like NCC plus AI ML could make network management predictive and increasingly autonomic. Is that right?
Absolutely. I believe. As I said, we will be announcing a few more products in the next few months using generative AI. I don't think people need to learn a new network product.
Sure.
Natural language will be used to network provisioning, natural language will be used for operations, and networks will be truly multi-provider and fully probably autonomous.
Okay. Neuron is putting power and control into the hands of the customer for the first time in the industry. This is amazing. But how will the SATCOM providers benefit? In summary, keep it short.
All right. There's tons of benefits. Again, it's just a phase that everyone goes through. We were initially seen as adversaries, and I think that has already changed. We do have
come into a provider near you.
Yep. We do have a lot of interesting conversations right now with providers, helping them unlock new products, launch new offerings. And at the end of the day, it also brings transparency at the heart of relationship that exists, where opacity was everything. Right now, we have changed that relationship. So the use cases can go from how do you bring transparency into an existing ecosystem, on the other, wherein there are hardware players, bandwidth players, and the end customer. On the other side, we do unlock a lot of we enable the service providers to offer new products and service offerings that differentiates them in the new era where people believe there is one dominant player and everybody else dies. Visibility
and awareness, regardless of which player it is in the industry, right? Okay. All right, so let's move on. How do encryption technologies like HSTS affect Neuron's ability to effectively analyze traffic?
I mean, encryption, we don't decrypt traffic. We just understand what type of flow it is. All we need to know is what type of application it is. I don't need to know what is. We don't need to know actually what is inside that, right? As long as we know it's a streaming application, I think it helps us monitor and manage it well. And I think I don't think anything else kind of prevents us from doing that. In summary, we just need to know what application type it is.
Yeah. All right. And is the model predictive? You mentioned some time of day scenarios, or does it only react to conditions in real time?
The consumption-based pool management has to be predictive, right? Because you have 30 days, you have a fleet of 100 ships, and you have 20 terabytes that you consume across your 100 ships. There you have to be predictive because 3 ships might be in dry dock, 2 ships might be stuck in a place where a particular service was not available. So you need to reforecast constantly. That helps us. So it has to be inherently predictive.
Yep.
So the short answer to the question is yes, it's predictive. Parts of the system is predictive already.
Okay. And we have a partnership type question. Are you looking for field service delivery partners for field installations and integration?
That's a question for Paul, who's our COO.
We're always looking for the right partners, I guess, is the answer to that. We're continuing to grow and deploy, and we're always looking for the right partners, including engineering resources, right? Technically.
Of course.
No, long and short, yes. All right. Unless you have anything, do you have anything else you want to share with the audience?
It was really good. Thank you for having me, and I think it was good to share experience, and really happy to answer any further questions that participants might have.
Any additional questions, guys? Feel free to shoot them over on LinkedIn. Send us an email. Kidsan@getneuron.com. Benny@getneuron.com. We're always available. We're always at the shows on social media. Just let us know what you need. We'll continue to try to keep you guys posted on social media when we do more of these sessions and if we plan any additional events or activities that you guys can join. But thank you for spending this time with us. We appreciate everyone that's out there, and we look forward to seeing you again soon.
Thank you.